everyone. Welcome to episode 40 of Block Magazine. And because I never say my name, I've decided to actually put it there. So I don't have to say, my name is Neil, blah, blah, blah. So I hope everyone's well. I know it's been ages since I've done a live, but I've not really had much to say. I've kind of, I don't know. I can't say much more about that, really. Nothing to say at all. So I thought we'll just dive straight in and talk about issue 16. And let me put that on the screen for you. So that was our cover. And let me just get, I'm going to open it on my iPad at the same time because I can't often read what's on the screen when I'm showing it. So give me 1 second while I just open it up. Because as ever, I'm not completely organized. So, okay. So this issue was called Dog Days. For those that don't know, Dog Days are the sort of hottest days towards the end of the summer. And one of my favourite films is called Dog Day Afternoon, which was, was it in the 74? Was it made, maybe? And it's about two guys who rob a bank. And it's one of the most stressful, tense films I've seen, well, a long, long time. Anyway, so... The first issue, the first thing to talk about was the cover, and this was Dawn. I won't say her last name, but Dawn knitted the piece for us, and the lady who's modelling it is, I think it's her daughter-in-law, I think, and she's actually a photographer. So Dawn took the photograph, but when I put it in the credits, I think I credited the photographer as the photographer, but really Dawn was the photographer. But I don't think anybody minded. The image there is a drawing I did of my friend's dog, Dennis. So I thought I'd put him in there because it seemed like a good excuse to share it. And let's see. Well, I'm going to go straight into Sezzy's iCord Maker review. So I think she wanted to do this review and wanted to do this iCord Maker because eventually she's going to make the shawl, the Ugly Cat shawl, and there's a huge cast on, which is an iCord, which if anybody knits iCords, it's a bit boring when you're doing it, with knitting needles. But this iCord Maker, I think overall, I think she was really pleased with it. I know she's in the chat at the moment, so if you can just say whether you loved it or not, or whether you would go back to using needles. A couple of people have just mentioned my hat. If you haven't already seen, this is a hat that Joe Bob got for me. And it says, "Make knitting great again." And then on the side, it says, "Stupidest man in all existence," I think. I can't actually see it. And then on the back, it's literally Knitler. Now, because I've got such a big head, I have to have it like that. I can't even put it on the very last thing. I have to just have one on. Otherwise, it just keeps snapping off and falling off my head. So, but it's to hold in my big brain. That's why I have a big hat. So, and he says, yes, it was awesome once I got the hang of it. Yeah, I think they do take a bit of getting used to, don't they? Because it's the sort of casting it on. I don't know whether that's what you call it with one of these. That I think is the tricky bit. And you have to have the right weight of yarn as well, I think. But I think there's one out there that's really rubbish, and I can't think what it's called. It's, well, I shouldn't say that because they might sue me, but I think it's the Addy one that isn't very good. But there's two. There's a Prim one, which I think is good, and then the one that Sezzy wrote about here. So hopefully we'll have a few more product tests in the magazine as well. And I tried something new this issue, and I'm not sure whether I like it and whether anybody even noticed. But if you look at the bottom of the page here on the right, where it says blocked, you can see like a lilac overlay. And what it is, it's so that when you just go onto the image, you can click and it will take you directly to the page rather than having to click on the link itself. But I don't know whether I'm going to use it again because I find it's a little bit distracting. So let me know what you think of that. There's a few more examples a bit later on as well where it's a bit more obvious, I think. Okay, straight into cross stitch as well. So this is by Mockingbird's Realm. So she did a couple of pooches for us. And then the first pattern is the Lottie Cowl. Now this is a pattern that I designed, and what it is, there's 4 variations, or is it 5 variations? Let me check. Yeah, 4 variations, and each one is based on one of our friend's dogs, so one of the knitter's dogs. And so I named them after the dog that it represents. So the one that Dawn knitted up for us was Lottie. Now, Lottie is Annie's dog, and you'll see a couple of photos of her a bit later on as well. Now, I can't remember. Oh, sorry, forgive me. I can't remember whose dogs the others are, but there was Max and there was Theo and also Watson. Watson, I remember. Watson is Mystery Mouse's dog. And with these patterns as well is the Lottie Cowl is the one that was knit up, and the example that we have here. But all of the others work exactly the same way. So the only difference is that the background pattern is slightly different, and I think a couple of them might be slightly deeper. But I think, yeah, they're all the same width. So apart from that, it's the same cast on for each one. So they'll all work. So I hope someone's knitted one of those. I'd love to see it if you have. I'm doing lots of and aren't I, today? It's because I've not been on a live for ages. Well, I've been on the Knit Night live a couple of times, but I've not done a live on my own for ages. I can't remember the last time. Okay, so the next thing in the magazine was an interview with 2 sisters and some yarn. And I interviewed them separately, so they didn't get to see or hear what each other had said until the end. And one thing that they both said is that they don't argue, which for sisters, I find that quite unusual. But I think there's a bit of an age difference between them, so that's why they get on. And I've done another interview with, well, I won't say who it's with, but that'll be in the next issue. And so I'll be interested to know if that's something that people would like me to carry on with. And if you do want me to carry on, I think it'd be good if you could suggest people who you'd like me to interview in this format, and also any kind of questions that you might have for them. Because otherwise I'll keep repeating the same questions. And then here we have the 2 sisters and some yarn cross stitch that I did. And the dog here, I put this particular pattern in this issue because of the dog, with it being dog days. And this is Andrew, who sadly is no longer with us, but I thought I'd put him on there anyway. So hopefully nobody was too upset about that. And and a couple of adverts here. Now, this, A Dog's Dinner. Now, if you haven't read any of this issue yet, if there's one thing you need to read, it is this by Jo Bob. And it's, oh, I forgot to bring the book. She actually sent me the book. So she did a book review. And Jo's probably got what would be described as a normal knitting gauge. And the book, whoever did all the designs, has a knitting gauge which is more like mine, which is extremely tight. And she didn't think, I don't think she did. She started one pattern and then gave up, but she could tell by the gauge that was in the pattern that there was no way she would be able to knit that gauge. So she decided to send the book of patterns to me. And I have got it, and I did receive it. And I have to say that the book looks really good. I've looked through it, and I can't personally see any issues with the patterns. And I will try doing one of the patterns because I think it is my gauge. So I think if you are, don't be put off buying it, but be aware the gauge of all the items is pretty tight. But this is hilarious, and you should read it because it was so good, so good. I'm not going to read any of it out because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. And Amy did a Dog Days cocktail for us. I think she did 2. Yes, she did 2 versions for us. And one's alcoholic, one's non-alcoholic. And Cezi did another crossword for us here. I won't ask any questions from it or give any of the answers away. We still haven't got any new dissidents at the moment, but there will be one in the next issue. because I can't remember whether I'd said it before, but I'm trying to catch up all the numbers to the issue. So in future, the Dissident will be, in the next issue, it will be Dissident 17, because that's issue 17. And if there's more than one, it'll be 17A, 17B, and so on. Because it was getting really difficult to manage, and people were asking, which issue is such and such a Dissident in, and I wouldn't know because the numbers didn't correlate. Some podcasts here. If you want your podcast to be advertised here, let me know, because one of the things that I'm not doing is I'm not going to put anybody's podcast in the magazine unless they specifically request it, because I don't want people sort of thinking I'm just putting them in, because some people don't want to have their podcast advertised in Block, which is perfectly fine. So let me know if you want it to be in there. So we have Two Sisters, we have Knit Night there, Politically Incorrect Knitters, and A Stitch in the Sky, all of which you should be watching if you don't already. My channel is advertised here, and again, this has got that purple sort of overlay on it, so I don't know whether, I don't know. I probably won't use that again, I don't quite like it. Okay, this was a favourite of mine. This was the Woolly Woofers. So I asked some of our readers and patrons if they could submit pictures of their dogs wearing wool. It didn't matter what it was, and if they sent more than one picture, I kind of doubled them up in the same image so that it wasn't like they were getting multiple entries. And if anybody had two dogs, that classed as one entry. So we had Gunnar, Scotty, Tanner, Blue, Bentley, Roxy and Lottie, Lucy, Theo, Sizzle, Zoe, Hoover, Fiona and Ollie, Durango and Watson. Probably pronounced some of those wrong. And I can announce who the winner is now. And with a vast majority of votes, the winner was Blue, which is the dog that's on the thumbnail for the YouTube today, and also in the left-hand page on the second column in the middle. So he's wearing like a mustard top. So what's going to happen is I contacted the lady who submitted Blue's picture and said that she'd won $20 and how, what did she want, whether she wanted a voucher or whatever. And what she said is she's kindly said to donate it to a local dog sanctuary here for me here. So what I'm going to do in the next issue is put a receipt for that in there just to show who it went to. So thank you very much for that. That was very sweet of you. And as you can see, it's hard to choose because all dogs are cute, aren't they? Even ugly dogs are cute, especially when they've got wool on them. That makes them even cuter. So then I bet people are sick of hearing about the ugly cat shawl. But this is the Tunisian crochet version. And it wasn't ready last issue to put it in. We still had to do some tech editing on it, so that's why it's in this issue. But this is Lottie, who I mentioned before. So this is Annie's dog, and this is from the pictures when we did the photo shoot on the beach. I love this picture because she's smiling from ear to ear. And then some more pictures. I think these pictures might have been in last issue, but they were great pictures, so I'm going to reuse them. Why not? And so Emily, just go back to Emily said it was really hard to decide on which dog to choose. Yeah, I can. It was hard. Imagine, and I'm glad we had 4. I think it was 14 we had. If we'd have had any more, I think it would have been impossible because it's so hard to choose. Yes, I keep terrible records. And he's got some feedback. That's good. So Katie says, yes, I like the interviews. Allows us to get to know folks. You could interview the staff of Blocked. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Other participants in Knitting Wars live videos. Yeah, definitely. Just checking some of the. Okay. So now on to the Shiangora, which is the hair of the dog. And this all came about because, well, two things really. One, because I found an old knitting book, which I think was published in the 90s. You see, I've written it in the article, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And as I was looking through it, I got it second hand, so it was quite cheap. I can't remember how much. And I just remember thinking, I wonder if anybody does actually knit with dog hair. And then I started to do some research into old newspaper articles in the UK and found quite a few where it was newsworthy to talk about people that had knitted sweaters with their dog's hair. And it seemed to be like in a cycle. So sort of every sort of 10 years or so, it seems to become the news again, as if it's never been done before. And I wondered why that was. And then I noticed that this particular book is about to be re-released. It's going to be re-released with updated patterns and I think, extra information in it. So I think it's November this year it's going to be re-released. So expect a lot of people to be knitting with dog fur and talking about it and so on. So I decided that I wanted to get hold of some. And it wasn't very easy. I managed to find somebody in the UK that did sell it, but it was really expensive. And then when I thought, oh, I'll have to try it, I'll do it, but they were sold out. The only other person I found, again, was in the UK, but they'd bought some yarn from, was it Croatia? No, Latvia. I think it was Latvia. And when it had arrived, she claims it wasn't the thickness that she'd expected it to be, because it was like worsted weight and she wanted fingering weight. Now, at the time, I just ordered it and bought it off her. And I did do my research and went to the website to find out where she'd bought it from to see, whether, how much she'd added onto the price and so on. And I did manage to barter her down before I ordered it. But what I think it was is when it arrived, I was expecting it to stink like wet dog, really bad. It did smell really strong, but it wasn't unpleasant. It wasn't a horrible smell. It was just like the sheepiest sheep wool smell you've ever smelled, but strong, really strong. And I think that might be what put her off it. I think she opened it and it smelled, and she thought, oh, I don't like that. But it wasn't unpleasant, you know what I mean? So anyway, I started to knit with it, and I thought, what I'll do is knit, because when I read the knitting dog hair book, there was one little section in the book where it said that in Estonia, people use dog hair for arthritis, so they knit garments for their arthritis. And I have quite bad arthritic knees. So I thought, well, I'll knit some knee warmers, some kneecaps. And I started to knit with this yarn, and it was just a bit odd. When I say it was odd, I think it was just odd to me, because I think I'm actually allergic to to dog fur. God, if you can imagine if I was allergic to cat fur. Wow. Yeah, because I couldn't, I wasn't choking or anything like that, but I kind of was losing my breath a little bit, and it was shedding a little bit as well. And I kept making mistakes, and it just wasn't working the way I wanted it to. I started knitting it, and then I realized it was going to be too tight, so I had to frog it all out. And every time I frogged it out, there was more and more sort of fluff flying in the air, and it was getting on my chest. And in the end, I kind of put it to one side for a bit, and I thought, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. But then I had a brainwave and thought, oh, I'll stick it through my Addi knitting machine. I've got like a king size knitting machine thing. And because I know that when you knit with that, it kind of only comes out about that wide, when you've finished it, even though the machine's about that, circumference of about that big. So when I did that, it did come out the right size. So I thought, great. So I made two, and I did try it on, and it is quite weird. I don't know if there's a placebo effect, but it definitely felt different. And I think what it is because dog hair is so much warmer than wool, that all of the blood rushes to the capillaries or whatever through the capillaries of where you're wearing it, and it heats it up. All the blood heats up the area. So I think that's why it kind of works. I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's getting towards winter now, and it's getting very cold. So I'll start trying it again, and I might become, a little bit addicted to wearing it. But at the moment, I kind of forget to try them on or put them on again. So it's not anything I would say you can't live without. So I wouldn't say it's a cure for arthritis by any means. But I can definitely see why people thought that it did work. So then I did a bit more. So, this is the yarn where it came from. It's got the label on. And one thing I just love is that I can't quite see it here, but I think it says 80, is it 85% dog? It doesn't say 85% dog fur or dog wool, it just said dog. So it's like, oh, ooh. And the pictures here are where I put it through the Addi circular knitting machine, and this is just the tubes that I made, and I just knitted some ribbon with some drop yarn on either end of it because I didn't want to actually knit with that yarn anymore because of the fluffy stuff that was coming off there. But in the process of researching this, I managed to find a thesis. So I contacted the Estonian Museum, and because I thought, well, if anyone's going to know about this dog fur, used in Estonia for arthritis, it'll be the museum. And they didn't know anything about it. But what they did do was they sent me somebody's thesis on dog fur, all in Estonian. So I had to translate it using Google Translate and then try and figure it out. It was quite complicated because it was all, it was a science-based thesis. And I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll sort of put the basic conclusions of what that thesis said. And basically, it's something like 40 to 80% warmer than sheep's wool. And it has a lot of properties that make it quite a desirable fiber to wear. So, for example, there was a whole story. I don't think it was in the thesis. It was in some research that I saw cited in the thesis, and it was somebody that had climbed the Everest or been to the Himalayas or something like that, and one of the guys wore a hat that was made out of dog hair, and he was the only one who didn't have sort of the ice and the snow frozen to the outside of the hat. So whatever it does, it really does keep people warm. So I'm going to send some of this over to Annie, because Annie's asked me, well, she's not asked me, I offered, because I know she has a bit of arthritis in her thumb. So I thought, well, I'll send her some of a skein over, and she can try and knit a pair of gloves or a knit pair of mitts or something and just see if it works. Because I want to knit a pair of gloves with it if I can get over this fluff. So we'll see. But yeah, so keep an eye out on that, because I think it's going to become a huge thing after Christmas once that book's released. But yeah, it's quite interesting. Oh, and these are just some of the clips that I found of people who was deemed noteworthy enough to put in the paper, who had knit with their pets' fur. So if you've got pets, if you've got a dog, some dogs have better isn't the right word, have more suitable fur for knitting with than others. So the best one is the one I wrote about, and now I can't remember. It begins with S. Who can remember what it is? I can't remember what they're called. Samoyed, I think it is. But those particular dogs, I think they're really, really expensive to buy. So if you wanted a dog, I think we're talking thousands and thousands. But also, I think Husky is a good one. And obviously, the shorter-haired dogs, you can spin with that, but you have to put what's called a carrier yarn in with it, just so it takes that yarn with it. Some other things about dog yarn is that it's more fragile than wool yarn. So if you put it in temperatures above 50 degrees, it will impair the fibers. So when they said impair, they didn't say how, but I'm just assuming that that's going to be felting, that it will felt at a much lower temperature. And what I didn't know is that in the same thesis, they'd also tested human hair and sheep hair. And human hair, I think it's something like 200 degrees. You can immerse it in 200 degrees water before there's any damage to the hair itself. So it's like, wow, that's quite interesting to know. Obviously, you wouldn't want to wash your hair in it because your scalp would come off. Anyway, that's beside the point. So in this issue as well, a lady who calls herself Rosie Riveter quite a while back had sent in these knitted kneecaps, and I think I might have mentioned them a few months ago. I can't remember now, but I've been sitting on this pattern for ages thinking, well, I hadn't really got a good reason to put it in. You know, there was no link until it all came out about the dog yard. So here we have an old pattern. This was, I think it was in a 1914 book, I think. She did two different versions there. So, and I can't remember why she did two different versions now off the top of my head, but I think she adapted it slightly. So anyway, so next thing is DK, Deplorable Knitter, has every year for a few years, she's been taking part in this co-crafting democracy, it's called. And up until recently, she's been the only, I don't want to say right-wing, because we're not right-wing, are we? But she's been the only, shall we say, Republican, for want of a better phrase, the only Republican small c conservative that has entered this. And it's about sort of political and, oh, what's the word they use? There's a word they talk, what do they call themselves? They call themselves craftivists, that's it. It's kind of craftivism. And what they ask for is submissions. It's usually every October, and they have to be a certain size, and they have quite strict rules as to what you can submit. It has to be something that you've knitted that year. It doesn't have to be knitted. It could be crocheted. It could be cross-stitched, and it doesn't have to be entirely crocheted or cross-stitched. I think you can, you know, have other aspects to it. You could have paper with a bit of it with it, or metal with some of it attached, and then you submit it, and then they'll display it in this exhibition, which is in New York State somewhere. And DK went to the latest exhibition and showed us some photos. And the hat here on the left page, that's her submission that she put in. And then on the right, we've got some of the other submissions. And this one here with the coat hanger, that's a rabbit, and obviously it's to signify abortion and whatever. And then at the very bottom, there's the Ruth Bader Ginsburg collar style thing. So it's sorely lacking in small c conservatism. So what we did is we put out a little call out, and we put in the magazine the official call for submissions. And I mean, it's too late now. The cutoff is the 25th, I think, or the 28th. Can't quite see it there. You know, so unless you can make it in sort of 5 days and then get it posted to them, I don't think there's much chance. But we did get a few people to do some submissions, and I've seen a couple of them, and they are brilliant. So I'm hoping that they get there in time for the exhibition, and then DK will either show it on the PIC channel, the Politically Incorrect channel, or she'll put it in the magazine. I'm not sure what she'll do yet. But I'm hoping we can try and make this a bit more of an annual thing with more time, because it was really short. We didn't have enough time really to get many people involved. But I just think it's a brilliant project to do over the summer, because they only need to be quite small. So obviously in the heat of the summer, you don't want to be making, you know, necessarily making sweaters or blankets, whereas these little pieces would be good. So keep an eye out for that, because I'm hoping we'll have a few things to show from that. And then at the same time, I thought I'd do the cowl competition, and you can enter both. So if you've already made a piece that's a cowl for the co-crafting exhibition, you can take photos and send me the chart, and I'll put it in the magazine and enter you into this competition. So this doesn't end until the end of the year. So there's still plenty of time to submit a chart. And also you need to have knitted it as well. So I need to see a photo of the knitted piece. And you can do whatever you like. There's no rules to this. The only rule is it has to be a cowl. So it doesn't have to be the style of cowl that I've put a blank template for. It can be any cowl you like. It doesn't even have to be color work. You could do cables if you wanted to. It could even just be plain if you wanted to. If you want to submit to submit that as well. Sorry, one of the cats is crying at me here. He wants attention. I'm alive. Go away. So, yes, thanks, Says it. Yeah, it has to be in the New York, well, I don't want to say the New York office. I'm not sure whether that's the right word, by the 25th. So, but my competition is till the end of December, and I'll announce the winner in the February issue next year. And the winner's going to get $50. So it'll pay for itself. If you make a cowl, you'll get more than your money back for the yarn. And on the left page here, this is just an example of the chart that I use, the template. But what you can do here at the bottom, you can download that onto your computer or your iPad or mobile phone, whichever you use. But there's also a link for if you have a Stitch Fiddle account. Now, it's worth pointing out that I don't think it will work if you haven't already got Stitch Fiddle. So if you haven't got Stitch Fiddle already, you'd be better off just downloading the example chart. Whereas if you've got Stitch Fiddle, the chart will be there, and then you'll be able to do whatever you want with it. You'll be able to make it bigger, smaller, you'll be able to fill it all in. So it is better if you have got Stitch Fiddle. But you can hand draw it if you want to. There's no reason you have to use a chart. So yeah, I'd love to see more, because I want to put them in the magazine as well. And so I've had a few submissions already, and a couple of them are excellent. So the bar has been set very high, but don't let that put you off. So anyway, Katie's in the chat now. Katie wrote our review here for the Black Sheep Knitting Mystery Series. Now, I don't read knitting fiction, but I did read her review of it, and it does sound quite good. It's definitely like Tabitha's cup of tea. It's definitely the whole, who killed who in the, the library with the revolver and all that kind of stuff. So it's, I think it was a knitting group, I think, for the story, and obviously someone's killing them all off for some various reason. I don't know why, but yeah. So thank you for that, Katie. The answers to the crosswords here. These are the upcoming issues, and this was that example I was trying to tell you where this lilac overlay. I don't know. Let me know if you think I should use it again or get rid of it. But that's a link to the Patreon, which is obviously really important. So go there and join. And that was issue 16, which we managed to get through very quickly, didn't we? So that was pretty good. So while we're still on, I thought it might be an idea of you. If any of you've got any questions about any of the issues so far, feel free to put them in the chat. While I'm going to put... Hi, Adam. Adam says, when I said any cowl you like, sounds like a Pink Floyd song. I should charge them, shouldn't I? And yeah, so Katie's just corrected me on that. She said it's not. It was a yarn shop and its owners and customers. So it wasn't a knitting group as such. Let's see what else. Oh, Adam, I'm not sharing that on the screen, but yes. You can always rely on Adam to say something you can't put on the screen. Says it. You're actually making a silk shag hooked rug. Okay. Yeah, it was Samoyed. I think, is that how you say it? Samoyed. So that's the dog with the best fur for knitting with. Oh, that's handy to know. Yeah, Katie says she likes to see the old newspapers. Yeah, I try and put some in every issue that's related to the theme, but I always wonder whether people like them or not, because I only have access to the British news archives. I don't have access to American news archives. So it's kind of a little bit, niche, really. Emily asked, what was the weight of the yarn? It was Samoyed yarn, so it was the dog yarn, and it was hand spun, but I would say it was a worsted, probably more of an Aran, so slightly thicker than a worsted, I would say. Adam's puns. Stitching time saves K9. Very good. That's an interesting point. Yeah, poodle yarn. So they're supposed to be hypoallergenic. And I believe that they have hair rather than fur. But I don't know whether poodle yarn is a good yarn to knit with. I'd have to check about that. I think it is. I imagine poodle yarn's going to be a bit like boucle yarn for some reason. I don't know. Probably isn't, but. Oh yeah, Emily mentioned about the smell of the dog yarn. She said, "I wonder if the smell depends on the dog breed. Some breeds are stronger smelling than others." Yeah, when I read the book, it says that what you do when you gather the fur is you literally just brush your dog, and then you take the fur off the brush and you store it in a tub until you've got enough to actually work with, and then you just soak. As it is, you don't do anything else with it at that point. You just soak it all in, I don't know, probably some like Eucalan wool wash or whatever, and you leave it in there, and then you dry it as it is as well. So obviously you don't agitate it at all. And then once it's dried, then you can start carding it and whatever else you do with your spinning yarn. I don't know. So I can't imagine it's that clean, but then wool wouldn't be either. And when I was thinking about it, I kind of had this like, ooh, dog yarn, like it's going to be really dirty. And then I thought, well, sheep is going to be more dirty, so really dog yarn's going to be cleaner than sheep yarn, really, isn't it? And Marlene says, my sister-in-law, who is a wonderful artist and crafter of all types of disciplines, had a fuzzy white dog named Laugh when she was a newlywed. She collected the shed fur and made yarn and knitted with it. Says that's a deal. I think we should do that. I even know what issue that needs to be in. So I'll speak to you about that later. So any other questions to do with the issue? Wow, this is going to be a short one. Normally my live's gone for 3 hours. We've only been on half an hour. So, what else can we talk about? Not a lot, really. For those that have been wondering, yes, we are going to, Tabitha and I are going to be doing a live soonish. I'm not sure exactly when, but I've got to listen to a podcast about a particular case that she wants to talk about. And once I've listened to that, then I'll be able to book that in and do it. So it'll probably be in a couple of weeks, I would imagine. Issue 17 is currently being put together as we speak. I've been really bad this time around. I haven't done my article yet that I need to write. So I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. And the theme of this issue is Fall Y'all, and that was by Amy from Two Sisters and Yarn. She came up with that one. And what have we got to do? So all I've got to do is to write the introduction, to finish the article, to start the article, and finish the article. And then there's one pattern I think I've just got to tweak, I think. Says he said I've got to put some yarn in there or something, I can't remember, and then I think it's done. And then that will be going to BS Designs, and she'll be putting that all together. And then at some point next week, I'm going to be having it's going to be a live, but it's not going to be aired on YouTube, so it's going to be private, but it's just going to be for the patrons. So if you're a patron, you'll be invited along, and I'm hoping that people who contribute to the magazine will be available to come along as well. And it's probably going to have to be around this kind of time in the evening because, obviously the later it is for me, the less, I'm around in my own head. But I know it's around, for some of you, it's about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, which isn't great, is it? It's time then you're going to be eating. So I don't know how successful it will be. But what the intention is to do from then on is every issue during that preview week that the patrons get the preview is that we'll have a live where it won't be recorded. So people who are shy, it doesn't matter, no one else is going to see you, where they can talk with the people that have actually contributed to the magazine or have worked on it in some way, and ask questions and also make suggestions as well. I think what we're going to have to do, I'm going to have a word with DK, Deplorable Knitter, because she does a lot of lives via Patreon. And I think what she does, I think she does them on Zoom. And I think that's just because of the amount of people. Because this is what I stream onto YouTube is software called StreamYard. And I think you're only allowed to have 10 people maximum, on the stream at the same time. Whereas Zoom, I think it's about 100, I think. So I think it'll be on Zoom. And what I'll do is because what you can do with StreamYard, if it was less than 10, I could set up the stream as I've done now, but you just don't press the go live button. So everybody's in the room, you can chat to everybody, but it just doesn't go live. So other people who aren't patrons won't ever see it. And it doesn't get stored. We're not going to keep it. For if you're a patron and you can't make it, I'm sorry, but you're going to miss it. It won't be saved for you. And what we'll do as well is just bring your knit in as well, because it might be a case that people don't really have any questions, but if you want to just sit there and knit, with us, that's perfectly fine. And if you want, I don't know if I've said this before, but if you've got ideas for future issues, join us, come and do it. How many patrons does Blocked have? Emily says. I'm not going to say, and I'll tell you why. There's a reason why. And I deliberately took that off. I don't think it's public. I don't think you can see how many there are. And the reason for that is because during the early days, what the hate watchers and the hate readers, what they were doing was trying to find anything to criticize the magazine over. And one of the things that I know they were trying to do was find out how many patrons there were. And if there'd have been not many patrons, they would have said, "Oh, he's only got so many patrons." And if there'd have been too many patrons, they would have been, "Oh, he's got all of them weird patrons. Let's find out who they are," Because at the beginning, there was a lot of people who joined that were, let's say, not interested in us in that sense. And they were there to cause havoc and to cause trouble. Because I was completely new to it. I didn't know what was going on at the beginning. But something, I think, because in the opening week of launching, I think there was well over 100 patrons who joined at the very, very beginning. But I'd say at least half of them, were there to spy. And after as soon as I introduced the payment, because when it first came out, I didn't charge anybody until I think it was the month after. I think it was that was it. I didn't charge until the magazine actually came out, because I didn't want people to say that I was taking money without actually getting anything. And the problem is that they were there, and then the moment so when the charge was about to be applied, then they all jumped ship. And that's when I realized that, these aren't here for that reason. And then, and since then, the patrons, so I'll say it's probably, it varies every month. It varies. And I tend to, it's like a up and down. I'd say at the most it's about 100, but it can come quite low. It's been as low as 30, and it does vary every single month. So it doesn't bring in a huge amount of money. What it does is it brings in enough money for me to pay the charges for things that we need to do for the magazine. So, for example, it's probably not really the magazine, but I pay for the service for StreamYard for doing this vlog. It pays for the actual magazine software, where it turns the pages and things like that. And also sometimes, it pays for the prize money that I give away and things like that. And then every now and again, there's enough to buy some yarn, but not a huge amount. Yes, a few groats to keep the lights on. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's about it really for today. So I think this is probably my shortest stream, isn't it? Unless there's any other questions, I think I'll wrap up. Oh, one last thing. I'm going to try and update the music in the intro, because all the images now are really out of date. They're from the first 3 issues. And obviously now we've got 16 issues. So I did a new countdown. and that's on there. But I don't know why I did one with music as well, and for some reason I can't get the countdown with music to work. I can only do the one without the music, but if I can't, I can't. That's fair enough. So. Oh, where is it? I like the shorter live stream video. You can only stand just the right amount of my voice. Is that what it is? Right. So on that note, I'm going to bid you all goodbye. So thank you for joining me tonight, and I shall see you probably with Tabitha next time. I think in a week or two, unless you're a patron, and then it might be next week or the week after. I'm not sure exactly, but I'll let you know on Patreon. So thank you very much, everybody. And for everyone who is watching, whether you're hate watching or whether you're here because you like the magazine, you have been blocked.